أبو بكر في الطور إذ يقول رحاب الهدى
We have been crossing the Hamada all day, a vast highland of rocky slabs, a stony desert, constantly changing, for as far as the eye can see. At a certain point we find ourselves on flat ground, then we cut through a gorge and go over a hill, both suddenly appearing out of nowhere. A long way from everything, in another time frame. At sunset, the Sahara becomes magical. The huge Tassili rock in southern Algeria is renowned as the largest site of prehistoric art. However, the same artists who once populated this desert have also left signs of their art here in Western Sahara. Elephants, giraffes, antelope and hunters suddenly appear from nowhere, decorating the walls and rocks of this magnificent outdoor museum. Testimonies to a desert that was once not a desert. Archaeological research conducted over recent years has helped date these examples of rock paintings to the Holocene era between 9,000 and 10,000 years ago. Despite having been conserved by the exceptionally dry climate, urgent intervention is now necessary for safeguarding this art. Along paths known only to the Sahrawi, stone funerary monuments appear with dozens of panels engraved on horizontal limestone slabs. Graceful animals, 30 to 40 centimeters high, carved with extremely clean and natural lines. The border between Algeria, Morocco and Mauritania. Our journey begins here at a frontier that for every Sahrawi represents the concrete beginning of his/her own nation. Western Sahara opens up beyond this column. Approximately 70% of this territory, 200,000 square kilometers, is illegally occupied by Morocco. To the east, in the remaining 30%, 86,000 square kilometers, are the areas liberated by the Polisario Front. A state that is inexistent on maps, even though this republic is recognized by over 70 countries all over the world and acts as vice president of the African Union. Its liberation movement, the Polisario Front, has been recognized by the United Nations as the legitimate representative of the Sahrawi population. Western Sahara was previously a Spanish colony. Tradition has it that before the arrival of the Spaniards there were numerous tribes, 42 in fact. Sahrawi, nomads and permanent inhabitants, lived in the territory of Western Sahara that stretches from the Atlantic shores to Tindouf in southern Algeria. Still today, the nomads are shepherds in search of elusive rains, breeders of herds of goats and dromedaries, always in search of pastures. Their life follows the pattern of seasonal transhumance in search of rain or other needs like grass, salt and water. On the 14th of November 1975, the Green March of the Moroccans up to the gateway of the Spanish Rio de Oro forced Spain to hand over this territory, which was then split up between Morocco and Mauritania. This was the beginning of the Sahrawis' fight for independence, which is still not over. Led by the Polisarian Front, the population fled towards Algeria. On the 27th of February 1976, the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic was proclaimed in Sahrawi territory. In 1991, the United Nations decreed the holding of a referendum for independence that has always been postponed due to being constantly boycotted by Morocco. Tens of thousands of Sahrawi refugees live in precarious conditions in the camps surrounding Tindouf in Algeria. Many of these, 30 years on, have not been reunited with their families, remaining under Moroccan occupation. Tifariti has been invaded by Morocco like the rest of Western Sahara. Liberated once and then reconquered again by the Moroccans, in 1979 it finally returned to us after a long battle. We are under the command of our government. This is a period of negotiations aimed at reaching a political solution. Like all other states, we keep our army trained, ready to go to war again if necessary. We try to make it possible for civilians and nomads to lead a normal life in this area, overcoming water shortage problems and removing landmines. The infrastructures that we are creating in Tifariti will enable us to resume life again in these freed territories. The hospital and school of Tifariti were built to house the Sahrawis who were to vote in the referendum for independence decreed by the United Nations and which has never been held. Sidak Mir Mohammed is the mayor of Bir Tirisit, 10 kilometers away from Tifariti. As you can see, there is a series of buildings erected as shops, a dispensary and families who live here.
حوالي 150 عائلة بعدية الموجودة
في المنطقة.
هي الزقني.
Intorno a questa piccola
There are
città
150 families living around this small town.
stanno qui, i nomadi che stanno intorno, 150 famiglie. وحياتهم شنو معيشتهم
عادية اللي عرض أنت مع تربية المواشي فيها تبتاب التجارة شوية تجارة.
Ci sono, come vedete, gente che fanno un po' di commercio, ma la più...
Some of them are traders, but the majority breed camels and goats, especially as there's water here and we're close to Tifariti. After waiting for hours in the sun, we suddenly take off again, without any warning. The Polisarian army consists of about 20,000 men. There are no signs that we are in a war zone. The general headquarters of the district of the Second Army is camouflaged and protected by monumental rocks. As an exception, the tanks are moved for us at the orders of the MINURSO, the United Nations Mission for the Referendum of Western Sahara, that ensures that the ceasefire is obeyed. A wall can exist in various forms. It can be 2,400 kilometers of land surrounded by 3 million landmines, or it can be a wall of silence. To prevent the guerrilla actions by the Polisarian front inside the Moroccan-occupied territory, in 1980 King Hassan II initiated the strategy of sand walls. These wind for 2,400 kilometers south of Morocco, as far as the Atlantic coast and the frontier with Mauritania, enclosing approximately 200,000 square kilometers. The sand and rock walls are preceded by an area filled with landmines, many of which manufactured in Italy, and are controlled by electronic surveillance systems and by the armed guards stationed at regular intervals. There are 135,000 Moroccan troops positioned along the entire length of the wall at a cost of $1 million a day to illegally protect a sea teeming with fish and a territory rich in phosphates, and today also oil. Besides dividing the Sahrawi population for 30 years, this wall has also changed their way of life, preventing the transhumance of sheep and dromedaries for just on 10,000 nomads who still live in this area despite the landmines. There are Moroccan and Sahrawi burials in the Tifariti cemetery, without any apparent distinction. The Moroccan tombs face towards Rabat, while the Sahrawi ones face Mecca. Before leaving the liberated territories, we managed to talk to a Sahrawi boy living at Smara in the Moroccan-occupied territory, who has clandestinely come to visit his family. Numerous Sahrawis have been imprisoned and tortured by the Moroccans. Many of them are still in the black prison at Laayoune and also in the one at Kenitra. The Moroccans keep the Sahrawi population under police control, preventing any kind of freedom. In order to get round the Moroccan wall, this boy had to pass through Mauritania, traveling for 1,500 kilometers instead of the 150 from here to Smara. At dawn, we reached the camps in southern Algeria, where about 300,000 Sahrawi refugees live. Smara, El Ayoun, Auserd and Dakhla, the furthest away. The names of these villages are the same as those occupied by the Moroccans, so as not to forget. The Sahrawi population has built its own spaces for freedom and resistance against exile, setting up a democratic government with a constitution that encourages religious tolerance and equality between the sexes. Those who visit the camps are always amazed to see the level of organization there. A unique case in Africa, these camps are run entirely by the population, and above all by the women. Their role, which was once fundamental in nomadic life, returned to being central in their life of exile and fight for independence, while their men were at the front. The Sahrawi women are among the most progressive in the Muslim world. They occupy a quarter of the seats in the Sahrawi parliament. They have set up professional training centers for women and training centers for the disabled. They are the doctors, teachers and administrators in the villages.
Se ven aquí las conjuntivitis, que las que él puede tratar como técnico, conjuntivitis.
We treat conjunctivitis that can be cured in outpatients here and in general diagnose problems connected to sight.
Disminución de la visión, él te la puede graduar a través de esto o de otros. La tabla esa donde ellos gradúan la vista. Es un hospital general.
This is a general hospital. We are all general practitioners and nurses. There are no specialists.
Las cosas, por ejemplo,
The more serious cases are sent to Tindouf or Rabuni.
Muy severo, por ejemplo, las respiratorias sí las tratamos aquí, neumonía, bronconeumonía, el asma.
We treat respiratory problems like asthma and also diabetes, if uncomplicated.
Las remitimos. Hipertensos igual. Todas las enfermedades las tratamos aquí, excepto si son...
Ours is a top-level hospital. Due to having to count on humanitarian aid, especially rice, flour and a few vegetables, many people are suffering from chronic malnutrition. Even though 2,500 calories are necessary per day, here they only receive 250.
Aquí nosotros tenemos nuestro hospital. Es un hospital compuesto.
The hospital of Rabuni consists of various departments. We are now in the pharmacy. There is a shortage of medicines in this period.
Nosotros tenemos una deficiencia en los medicamentos casi generales.
We haven't received any for 4 months and our stocks are diminishing.
La entrada ya está disminuyendo. Los medicamentos que nosotros producimos aquí, lo que podemos nosotros hacer.
Our laboratory can produce approximately 50 different drugs.
Eritromicina al 2%, esta es ilapovidona, loperamida, doxiciclina, omeprazol, ibuprofeno. Esos son los medicamentos más utilizados en esta temporada. Cada temporada del año y las enfermedades que nosotros tenemos.
We managed to produce the drugs required by the hospital for the most significant seasonal illnesses.
Un convenio entre estas necesidades y lo que nosotros producimos.
There is a gradual depletion of the humanitarian aid which the life of the camps depends on. Someone has probably realized that this could bend the resistance of the Sahrawis. There is no electricity in the camps, and water is a rare commodity. There are increasingly fewer tents as they are now being replaced by sand brick buildings with iron roofs. Around the villages, there are fenced-in yards for the animals. Schools, first aid centres and water wells have sprung up in many of the tent villages, with vegetable gardens where there was once only sand. As one of the farmers explains to us, they grow onions here in Dakhla, but in the future there will be carrots, beet and feed for the dromedaries and goats. There was once a vegetable garden in this area, but the advancing sand destroyed everything. The wind is the main problem for those working in this land. There are no barriers or walls against the Sirocco wind, which would prevent the sand from entering the garden and destroying everything.
مرتفع بدأ يتشقق ويتهب.
Even after 30 years of life in exile, memory and cultural roots are still kept alive for the new generations born in the camps. For those who have never seen their homeland.
ما قد صبحت مغلولة جيران معاولنا قاطبتنا فداه ما قاط ملكتنا دولة.
The main method for keeping this memory alive is the high level of schooling, with a literacy rate reaching 95%, the highest in the entire African continent. This is the 9th of June school, opened in 1978. It's a co-ed school which has 1,200 children attending this year. More than 70% of the children from this school have been abroad at least once, thanks to European solidarity. One of our children was even sent to Geneva for the International Year of Refugee Children. The shortage of blankets and mattresses in the dormitories is a serious problem. Another one is the lack of sports equipment, games, TV sets, and a video library. For those children who return after being abroad, the world is no longer just war and desert, but also houses, trains, planes. These children act as messengers. They help many Europeans to come in contact with the plight of our population. But it also represents a psychological shock due to the impact of this new world, followed by their return to the reality of the camps. They take at least 2 weeks to readjust. For us, the liberating of human beings means the creating of a free person, free from ignorance, but above all a person who is tolerant and understands that the world is not just this piece of desert where we find ourselves. There are other peoples, other cultures, other religions, all of which deserve respect. We try to live together with the differences of other peoples. The religious faith of the Sahrawis, Islam, is a purely personal matter, far removed from every form of fanaticism and violence.
ما قاط صبحت مغلولة جيران معاولنا ولا قاط ملكتنا دولة ولا قاط بيتنا فداه ما قاط ملكتنا دولة ولا قاط بيتنا فدفاه البلاد صلنا حرمتها البلاد صلنا حرمتها من مجدها لبسنا ولا قادر ست لبستها في نهار ما جددنا ما قادر ست لبستها في نهار ما جددنا قاط قوة رزتنا ما قاط قوة رزتنا بالعنف ما صادينا ولا قاط قلنا كلمتنا ومشات ما نفذنا ما قاط قلنا كلمتنا ومشات ما نفذنا رجلتنا ما قاطعت رجلتنا لعداينا سلبنا ولا قاطنا مغلولة ناقات صبحت مقلولة جيراننا عاونا